Hello my dear art friends, in today's video I would like to talk more about grades of the pencils I use in my value drawings and in my portraits, because this is something you keep asking me about. I usually tell you what kind of grades I use during my drawing process when I'm narrating some tutorials for my $20 plus patrons, but in here I would like to talk about the grades I use in general, so it will be a drawing tip for my patrons, $10 plus. At first, I will show you the grades I usually use for my drawings and talk about it in general, and then I would like to show you also on some examples how I use them in the portraits like this one. At first, I will show you some of the grades I use most and what values you can create with them. I will use F pencil, which is very similar to HB H pencil. Then I will use 2B pencil, which is a little bit softer. And then I will use 4B pencil, and you will see how we can create a very similar, how we can create different values with very similar pressure and different grades of pencils, so you can see the differences and you can use it in your own creations. And then I will describe also what grades of pencils I used in this drawing. Unfortunately, I don't have the full process recorded because it took me a really long time, and I wanted to make it the best way I could, so I didn't record it in one real video. So I have some compilations of some of the parts, and I will narrate it to make a tutorial for my $20 plus patrons. I will try to narrate it also this week or maybe Monday, and I will take some main parts, especially the eye, the nose, mouth, and maybe some part of the skin, to tell you what grades of pencils I used, which shading technique I use, what blending tool I use for the individual parts, what eraser I used, what pressure I used. So you will hear anything you want to hear and which could be helpful for you in the following tutorial for my $20 patrons. But now I will show you some tips on using my pencil. So for my shading process, write it down. I hope you're okay with it that I'm writing it down with my hand. I just love it to demonstrate all the things with my hand. So the shading process. For my shading process, I use usually my pencils in wide range because they can produce various values of the shading. So the lightest or the hardest pencils I use is H, or F or HB pencil, and I come to 6B for the most of the time, sometimes 4B, it depends how dark we want to go, or sometimes I also go to 8B pencil, which is for the darkest parts, darkest tones of gray, because we can't really produce black color with the graphite pencils because they are gray in natural. So as you can see in here, these are the range for these are actually like pencils from the Koh-i-Noor and pencils from Faber-Castell I use the most. Before I used to draw with Koh-i-Noor the most, and then I just started to be interested in Faber-Castell pencils because they produce much more graphite. I already said it before, but there's been some kind of improvement in the tools I used before, after I made the previous video on the brands of the pencils I use. But be careful because the Faber-Castell line produces much more graphite, so it will be much more smudgy than the Koh-i-Noor. So you can really you can try both of them because these are not very expensive. You can find it in the local art store or in the stationery store, which is just for normal sketching. And I actually love to use both of them, but be careful, try it before you come to your value drawing. This one is much more smudgy than this one. So also you can achieve lighter values with this one than this one because it produces much more graphite. So as we can see in here, there are different grades. I use, as you can see in here, H to 8B. I don't really use the 2H because I think that this is great for doing geometry in the school or some kind of architectural drafts of the buildings, but not for value drawing. So I start with F, H, B, sometimes H, but I think that these are very similar, so I don't really tell you which one of them to use for the basic sketching and for the lightest values. These three, like HB, F, and H, are really great for the basic sketches. I tell you, the quick sketches where you don't use any shading or just like some kind of attempt of shading, where you don't really use smooth kind of shading where you can go dark. For the value drawing and for the shading, like the mid-tones and shadows, I use 2B to 8B pencils. Now I will show you the differences. I already showed you before, but I would like to show you these also on examples, because I think that when I tell you just a range of the values, this is not something that tells you much. So I will start with F, and I will try to use gradual shading where you can see like different amount of pressure. So this is F pencil. It's very light, you can see it right now. Then there will be 2B pencil, because between F and 2B there's not so much of the difference, because as you can see in here, you can achieve different kind of values only with using different pressure. I don't really recommend to take 6B or 8B pencil and to create all of the values with this one, or to take F pencil and to push it really too hard to create darker values. This is not how it works, because you will damage the paper or you won't be able to achieve very light values, for example, with the softest pencils. So I do recommend to use the range of the pencils, but I don't think it's necessary to use all of it. I think you can go for F pencil, 2B pencil, 4B pencil, and 6B pencil, and you will be okay with creating the various or the wide range of values. This is because I don't really think that you should spend all of the money for buying all of them. You can for sure, but you don't have to. I think that you will be okay when you go to the shop and you will just buy 3 pencils for the very beginning, for the start. So, and I think that you can also especially Kohinoor pencils and the Faber-Castell pencils, you can buy them like separately in the store. So you can buy the grades of pencils you need. Also, when you will buy the set and some of the pencils will just be used already, you can you can buy the one you already don't have. So this is great that you don't have to buy all of the set. It's because they are not really the most expensive tools on the market, so that's why. So now I will go for the 2B. As you can see, there is little difference, especially in the darker part, because we can really go to the light value, which is already created with F pencil. Maybe you can see that there is a little difference in the texture when I use this one and this one. This is a little smoother. This is there are like little dots in it. It's because it produces more graphite. This is why. Also, it will be more smudgy than this one. You can see that there will be like very darker smudges. Right now I will go for 4B. I'm trying to use a very similar amount of pressure in all of them, but it's not so easy. As you can see in here, totally different texture than in this one, because we produce much more graphite, and the darkest value is a little bit darker than in 2B, and totally a lot darker than the F pencil. And as you can see, it's really smudgy. And right now I will also show you 6B pencil. So I'm using 6B pencil. You can even see that the writing is much darker in here than in here. Also, I would like to notice that the smudges will be much more than in here. And also, I would like you to notice that in here, the writing has little thinner lines than in this one. It's also because of producing much more graphite. When you take really sharpened pencil, we can do it right now. I will try to take sharpened pencil with the F grade, and then I will sharpen pencil of the 6B grade, which is very soft, because we go from the hard to soft, and we will do some lines. So right now you can see that the quality of the line is still the same, that you can create a very thin line in the beginning and also in the end. But right now I will do the same with 6B pencil. And you can see that the line is getting thicker and thicker. So the line in the very beginning was very thin, and then we when we went to the thick line because of producing the graphite. It produces much more graphite. As you can see, it also created a little flat plane. So when I hold it in the same position, I will create like a thicker line. And when I turn it, because I already created a sharp edge of the chisel point, I am also already able to create a thinner line. So if you use the softer pencil for shading, and you will create the flat plane, and then you want to use it to create thin darker line, for example, because this is thin line but it's light and you want to go darker, so you just turn it around and create the thinner darker line with the sharp edge of the There's also something else I want to tell you about the shading with the various grades of pencils. We already used various grades of pencils to create various values in here, and also to create various values with the same grade of pencil. And plus, there is something more. I think it's quite difficult to explain, but I think that it's not so hard to understand. We can also use the same grade of pencil to create little darker value than we are already able with the first layer, and it's after layering. So we can use the same pencil and we can go over the drawing few times with the same amount of pressure. We can use the different direction. So I'm using still the same pressure and I'm going over and over again. As you can see, I created really darker value, but I am not able to go this dark. If I am going to put a little more amount of pressure or much more amount of pressure, as you can see right now, I am able to go very dark, but still not so dark like in this one. And this one was created not with so much of the pressure. So right now I'm creating like little more pressure, and you can see that it's a little darker than this one. Also, because we used a lot of pressure, we little damaged the paper and we created like very big shining effect, which is not wanted in the value drawing. Also in here, it created the first time I pushed a little more, it created like shiny effect. So I don't really recommend to use one pencil for all the shading process. And yes, these are the ways how to create different kind of values. So with different grades of pencils, then you can use one pencil for little wider range of the values, for example 2 or 3 range of values, and then you can achieve darker value also with using the same grade of pencil but creating more layers of shading. But please still try to be careful about the things I already told you, because I don't want you to damage some, for example, some drawing you really like just because of some little mistake that is like putting so much more pressure to create darker value. It will damage the paper. You can also make a hole in the paper. So I hope this is understandable. If there's something you don't understand or you want me to explain more or to show more, just tell me. Now I will show you on the examples. And now I will show you this one or this tip on the examples when I'm drawing. So at first I will use F pencil to shade the first lips. I have 3 lips in here, and I will show you how we are going to shade them with various grades of pencils. So the first will be F pencil. I already created all these shapes with F pencil because it's great for creating thin and light lines, which are very easy erased when we make a mistake or when we don't want to be the lines visible in the final drawing. So right now I will create some kind of shading. It will be very raw sketch, but I just want you to see the differences. So we can create like the basic shading. I'm not even using the contour shading technique because I want to show you only the grades. and the differences. Right now I'm creating like the second layer for the shadow parts. Right now I'm pushing a little more to create darker line in the middle part of the lips and also at the bottom of the lips to create a little shadow. So as you can see, it's very light. It's very light, and we can try to create more of the layers, but it won't go so darker. As you can see, it still creates very similar values, and it's because just it does not produce so much graphite, so I can't really go darker in the shading with the F pencil, because if I use this kind of pressure, it would be shiny and I would damage the paper. So this is the first one. We can also try to blend it, so we could see how it looks with blending, with smoother result, but it doesn't help at all because it's very, very light. You can also create some highlights in the lips. You can see there is not even visible the highlight because we can't achieve dark value with the F pencil. So please do not look at the shading technique and how it looks. I just want you to see the difference in the grades. So this will be 2B pencil. So these are the shadows, and I will go also for the rest of the lips. I'm still trying to create a little more shadow on the left side with a little more layers. Right now I'm trying to push a little more to create like darker value, but not in the shading, only in the lines itself. I can use the blending tool also to blend it and make it a little smoother, so you can see it with blending also. And I will create some highlights. As you can see, it's a little darker. And we will try it also with 4B pencil. Please forget me the shading technique and how it looks. This is really about the final result. Or not about the final result, but about the shading. So let's create the first layer of shading first. As you can see in here right now, we already are able to create like very similar shading like here. Here we created it with more layers of shading, and in here we're still in the first layer. Right now I will create a little darker. I'm pushing right now, creating a little darker shadow in here, and let's create second layer of shading to create like a little shadow in the lips with more layers. I'm trying to push with the same pressure. It's not so easy, but I'm trying. So as you can see in here, it's a little darker than two lips above. I will also. As you can see, it's also when you use the darker or when you use the softer pencil, the shading gets softer automatically because you create like thicker lines next to each other, like not like here, and it creates soft shading also without the blending tool. As you can see in here, maybe I will. Yes, this is how we can see the grades and the values much more. So I darkened the lighting a little bit so you can see it much better. As you can see, we used the same number of layers and also the very similar pressure of amount of pressure of using the pencil, and we created various kinds of values. It's not such a big difference, but it's because we didn't push too much to create like very dark values. So right now I will talk more generally about the grades of pencils I use while I'm drawing a portrait like this. So I will demonstrate it on this portrait of Lady Gaga. Actually, I will make a tutorial later where I explain also the shading techniques and and I will tell you more concrete detailed information about the grades. But very generally speaking, as I showed you this grade or F or H or HB, I'm using this grade of pencil for sure for creating the basic shape, so the outlines, because when I make a mistake I can easily erase it, and it's not visible in the final drawing because it doesn't make a thick and dark lines. Just be careful, do not push too much, because the harder pencil tend to make like a mark in the paper you can't really erase because it's already the part of the texture. So I use the F or H or HB pencil for generally shading the skin, because as you can see it is very light, there are very light values, you can't maybe even see it because I can see it when I get close to the picture. So here, like the lighter values of the skin, here under the eye, right here, right here, right here. These are drawn with the H or HB or F pencil. Then I'm trying to darken it in two ways. I can darken it with using more layers with the F pencil, or I can take 2B pencil, which is more often, and I will create the darker parts of the skin right now, like here, also here, the shading like in here, parts of the cheeks, also in here above her lips and her lips, the mid-tones and the lighter tones. Then I'm just, after the shading process, I'm just taking the brush and I'm just creating smooth, gradual transition between the values, so you can even absorb the graphite with the 2B, with the shading you made with 2B pencil, and you can go over the shading of the shading you created with F pencil. So this is the way how I'm drawing the skin, especially in the lightest parts. Then there are also like very dark parts in here and in here where there are some shadows created on the skin. So there is the part I'm using softer pencils. It depends on how dark we want to go and how dark is the reference photo. But in here I'm using 4B pencil the most. Then I'm also using a 2B pencil, the same grade like I used for the darker parts of the skin on the face. I also use 2B for shading these areas or under her eyes, or also the midtones of the eyeball, also the iris in here. Also the shadow under her nose. Sometimes I use 3B to darken it a little bit, but also on the lips and on her teeth. When I need to darken it, I also use the second layer or the third layer, or I'm using 3B or 4B pencil. Usually when I want to darken the shading I made with the 2B pencil, I usually use 3B pencil and go over it once or twice with very little pressure, and darken it. For example, in here you can see that it is darkened with 3B pencil just a little bit. Also in here, when you can see the shadow under her eyelashes, or in here, or the edge of the iris in here in the lighter part. I also used 3B pencil to create a shading in her nostril. I also used 3B pencil to create this shadow in here, or these values in here. Then the darker shadows are created with also 3B and 4B. This is actually very relative, because it depends on how dark you want to go in different kind of shadows. But now I would like to talk about the darkest part. Again, as I showed you before, I use the Aquarelle Kohinoor pencil. And it's actually also partly from graphite. I don't use it with water. I use it only as a pencil, as a graphite pencil, just making dark shadow. So as you can see in here, the eyeliner and also the pupil, and also this little birthmark is very dark, and also these little parts, like in the very detail, are created with this Aquarelle pencil from Kohinoor. It is 6B grade, because there are already created more grades, but this one is 6B and it's black one. So I also create highlights in the portrait, as you can see in here on the nose, or on the upper eyelid, also in the eye somewhere, like in here on the waterline, or also here. Maybe you will see it when I change the lighting, because it's too light right now. I think this is better. As you can see in here on her teeth, also on the lips, also here in the earring. All these are created with a pencil eraser. You can also use a kneaded eraser, which is sharpened into a point, as I showed you in one of my previous videos. So if you tap on it, you will create you will absorb a little of the graphite on a very small detailed area, and it will create a lighted value or a highlight in the skin or in the drawing. So if you didn't watch my drawing tip about my erasers, just watch it because I think it could be helpful for you. I use erasers a lot, not only for erasing when I do a mistake, but I also use it to create like different values in the drawing, especially the highlights. Or when I need to pick up some graphite, for example, I overshaded because I put there more the shading that I wanted, so I used the kneaded eraser to tap on it and to pick up the graphite, to absorb the graphite and make it a little lighter. So that's all from me for today. I hope it was a helpful tip for you. I will also narrate the tutorial for you. It will be as soon as possible because I also want to narrate the rest of the sketch of the tailor heel. There is a part of drawing hair. So maybe I will at first finish the hair drawing and then I will narrate this one for you. And also I would like to upload one tutorial which is devoted to drawing from reference photos. You keep asking me about this one a lot, so I will try to find some great picture and to draw from the reference and to show you how you can measure to get the proportions right into your drawing. And also I would like to do the sketches like a few days ago, I posted some pictures from the free stock database, and I would like to pick up one or two of them and to draw it for you and explain the process. So these are the tips and tutorials which are coming soon, so I hope it will be helpful. If you have something you want me to make a tip on or you want me to explain, just tell me in the comment section or just write me a message or email, and I would love to help you with that. I would love to make a new tutorial or tip which is devoted to your questions. Just go ahead and ask me anything, and I will be really grateful if you have something to ask, if you really do ask, and I can help you, because that's why I'm here. I'm here for you, to create some exclusive content for you, to offer you more help, and to give you some advices which are actually helpful for you. So that's all from me for today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!